This is a dark story, blackened with some of the shocking but organized crimes. How did the Sicilian Mafia actually arise? Messina Denaro became the godfather. However, he was arrested in January 2023.
Italy's most wanted mafia boss has finally been captured after spending decades.
Beginnings of the word mafia, which began on the Italian island of Sicily in the 1800s.
Italy's most wanted mafia boss, has been arrested after 30 years on the run.
Military police led away Italy's #1 fugitive after arresting the mafia boss at a hospital in Sicily.
Before we can tell you about the Sicilian Mafia, you first need to know about Sicily itself. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful island in the heart of the Mediterranean Sea called Sicily. With its stunning beaches, lush green landscapes, and rich culture, Sicily was a paradise on earth. The locals were hardworking and friendly, and their main source of income was agriculture and fishing. In those days, Sicily was loosely ruled by Italy. However, in the early days, Greeks, Romans, and even Arabs controlled the island. But even paradise has its problems. Before the rise of the Sicilian Mafia, the island was plagued by poverty, corruption, and crime. The government officials were notorious for their incompetence and lack of interest in the welfare of their people. The law enforcement agencies were underfunded and understaffed, making it easy for criminals to thrive. It was the place of fertile land where this mafia could sprout and strengthen its roots. It appears that everything was waiting for the Sicilian Mafia to rise and take charge of the island. Some of the wealthiest people controlled the island and had peasants work on their lands. Even those wealthy people had private guards who worked more like a private army. Simply, Sicily was a highly armed area where these wealthy people were kings and peasants suffered. The peasants were tired of being exploited and abused, so they formed groups to defend themselves, their families, and above all, their honor. These groups were called Mafiae, which loosely translated to swagger or boldness. They were made up of men who banded together to protect their own. As time went on, the mafia groups began to evolve and became more sophisticated. They started to infiltrate local businesses and governments, using violence and intimidation to get what they wanted. They even began to establish relationships with other criminal organizations in parts of Italy and Europe. Earlier, the Sicilian Mafia operated only in Sicily, but with time it reached the US and even Europe. This mafia family could kill anyone it wanted, no matter where the person lived. It was what made them untraceable assassins. But how could they do so? Well, one of the secrets to mafia's success was their ability to keep their operations secret. They used a complex system of codes and signals to communicate with each other, and their omerta code meant that they would never betray each other to the outsiders. Every person working for the Sicilian Mafia was from a large family, so there was no chance of failure. There was no third party, you see. With time, the Sicilian Mafia became next to God. When the Mafia grew in power and influence, they became more fearless in their tactics. They started demanding protection money, known as pizzo, from the local businesses, and those who refused to pay would face the consequences. Perhaps you might wonder how a mafia can operate so prudently. Why didn't they get disorganized and crumble into pieces? Well, everyone in the Sicilian Mafia had to follow the rules, laws, and culture that was supreme to everything. And believe us, those laws were utterly brutal. But the only reason why the Sicilian Mafia was stronger than every authority, it was the undying loyalty and feelings of the same blood that bound the Sicilian Mafia together, unlike any other bond. But what were the laws? Well, it was loyalty, honor, and a fierce sense of belonging. Members of the Sicilian Mafia could die, but their loyalty and honor could never. And what if any of the Sicilian Mafia members were caught? Well, they had to follow omerta, which is the code of silence. No matter what happened, members were forbidden from revealing any information about the Mafia to outsiders, even if it meant going to jail or death. Breaking the code of silence was considered one of the most heinous crimes in society, and anyone caught violating it faced severe punishment. So it was better to endure torture by the authorities and not reveal any information than to disappoint the family. And what if someone wanted to go to the police and end their relationship with the Sicilian Mafia? Well, they could not. The Sicilian Mafia law prohibits anyone from going or collaborating with authorities. Since the Sicilian Mafia had started as a revolt when the authorities were asleep, expecting justice from those authorities was shameful. And this code ensured that the Mafia remained a tightly knit group that was resistant to outside interference. Perhaps the most powerful law was the power of the Godfather. He really was the Godfather who held all absolute power over the entire family and subordinates. Whatever he said should be done without asking questions. It was this undying loyalty and obedience which made the Sicilian Mafia something never seen before. But what if any of the Sicilian Mafia members were killed? Well, that's where the code of blood for blood comes in. The code stated that if a member of the mafia was killed or harmed in any way, the entire mafia would exact revenge by killing the offender. Nothing of a settlement could be done, no matter how much money was offered. The Sicilian Mafia didn't have only Sicily and other areas in their pockets, but also police, judges, government officials, and every powerful man. Whatever they would do, the police won't arrest them. Rather, in some cases, police would wipe off all the traces left by the Sicilian Mafia and get paid for that. Even if any of the members were arrested, the Sicilian Mafia would use its influence on government officials. Within a few hours, that person would be set free. And if that didn't work, and the arrested person was presented in court, the judges were bought. You see, the Sicilian Mafia had deep pockets, and they could buy anyone they wanted. They knew that everyone had a price tag, and they had to have more money than that price tag. Even they knew how to use fear, intimidation, and bribery to get what they wanted, and they didn't hesitate to use those tactics to protect their interests. And the politicians knew that crossing the mafia could lead to political suicide, or worse, physical harm to themselves or their loved ones. So they often turned a blind eye to the mafia's illegal activities, or even actively conspired with them. Many of them were on the mafia's payroll, receiving regular bribes to look the other way, or even provide inside information to help the mafia evade justice. And as for government officials, well, the mafia had them in their pocket too. They knew how to use their connections and influence to secure lucrative contracts and favors from the government. What we told you about the Sicilian Mafia is the tale of the 19th and 20th centuries. Today, the Sicilian Mafia still exists, albeit in much weaker and less visible form. While the organization no longer holds the same level of power it did in the past, it still has a presence in Sicilian society. The Mafia's deeply rooted connections in Sicilian society, including its control over politicians, police, judges, and the government officials, have made it difficult to dismantle the organization entirely. However, the Italian government made significant progress in recent years in cracking down on the Mafia's power. In the 1990s, a massive anti-mafia campaign was launched, which resulted in the arrest and conviction of many top mafia bosses. After the most notorious Sicilian mafia godfather, Salvatore Riina, died in 2017, Messina Denaro became the godfather. However, he was arrested in January 2023 after being on the run for 30 years. Today, the mafia is a much less visible presence in Sicilian society. However, the organization still exists, and there are still reports of mafia-related activities always going on. Do you think the mafias of today are as powerful as the Sicilian Mafia? Isn't the mafia's head, often called Godfather, more dangerous and influential than even presidents of countries? Do you think the Sicilian Mafia can be revived as Michael Corleone did in the movie Godfather? Do you want to watch more videos about mafias and crimes only shown in movies? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos that tell you how dark, mysterious, and extraordinarily genius the criminal world is. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.